Imagine discovering the ultimate betrayal. Your own sister, just days before her wedding, caught in a passionate kiss with the man you love. The shock, the anger, the absolute heartbreak, it shattered my world. And what happened next, no one could have predicted. I was 28, and my younger sister, Sarah, who was 26, was getting married soon. Her wedding was fast approaching, and I should have been excited, but a creeping unease started to settle in. I began to notice something deeply peculiar about her behavior around my 29-year-old boyfriend, Tom. At first, it was subtle, nothing overt, just little things that made my stomach clench. She'd laugh a little too loudly at his jokes, even when they weren't particularly funny, always quick to exclaim, "Wow, you're so funny." I tried to dismiss it. Maybe it was just wedding excitement, I told myself. She was probably just being overly friendly. But as the days passed, the signs became more troubling. She started finding excuses to touch him, a hand on his arm during conversation, a casual bump as she walked past him. These gestures were discreet, yet unmistakable. I'd catch her eyes lingering on him a beat too long when he wasn't looking, and a cold knot of dread would tighten in my gut. One evening, after a family dinner where Sarah had been particularly flirtatious, I knew I had to say something. As soon as Tom and I were home, I turned to him, trying to keep my voice even. "Did you notice how Sarah was behaving tonight?" He looked at me, genuinely confused. "What do you mean?" I explained everything. The excessive laughter, the unnecessary touching, the way her eyes followed him. He listened, then simply shrugged. "I think you're overthinking it. She's probably just excited about the wedding. It's harmless." His words felt like a punch to the gut. Harmless? It certainly didn't feel harmless to me. Despite his reassurances, a growing seed of doubt had been planted, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. I decided to keep a closer eye on things, desperately hoping I was just being paranoid, that my suspicions were completely unfounded. But the next few weeks were thick with tension. Every time we were around Sarah, my eyes were glued to her, dissecting every little movement. It became painfully clear she was constantly trying to position herself near Tom. She'd always sit next to him if she could, finding endless, flimsy excuses to ask for his help with wedding tasks, even when I was standing right there. Then, one day at a family barbecue at my parents' house, I went inside for a moment. When I returned, my heart plummeted. Sarah and Tom were tucked away in a corner of the yard, talking quietly, standing unusually close. She was giggling, a sound that grated on my nerves. The moment they spotted me, they sprang apart, and Sarah walked away as if nothing had happened. A wave of nausea and pure, unadulterated anger washed over me, but I swallowed it down. I wouldn't create a scene at a family gathering. Not yet. Later that night, back home, I tried to approach Tom calmly. "What were you and Sarah discussing earlier?" I asked, though my voice probably betrayed my simmering frustration. He looked surprised. "Just wedding details," he said, like music selection. His answer did nothing to quell my unease. Why did a simple conversation about music require them to stand so intimately? He sighed, clearly annoyed, and tried to dismiss my concerns yet again. "There's nothing going on," he insisted. "Sarah's just being friendly." But by now, I couldn't hold back. My voice rose. "Friendly? She's practically throwing herself at you, and you're doing nothing to stop it." My words seemed to wound him. He looked at me with a pained expression. "What exactly do you expect me to do? She's your sister. I'm just trying to be polite." Telling her to back off, he claimed, was out of the question. I told him he could at least set some boundaries, make it clear he wasn't interested. But he doubled down, claiming he wasn't interested at all, that there was nothing to clarify because I was seeing problems that didn't exist. Our conversation spiraled into a frustrating, endless loop. Neither of us would see the other's point of view. We eventually went to bed, angry and utterly exhausted, the issue completely unresolved. The following day, a new resolve hardened in me. I needed to confront Sarah directly. Avoiding it was only making things worse. I called her, asking to meet for coffee. She agreed immediately, her voice cheerful, oblivious to the storm brewing inside me. At the cafe, my hands trembled as I stirred my coffee. Sarah, however, was ebullient, chattering enthusiastically about her wedding plans, completely blind to my discomfort. After a few excruciating minutes, I couldn't take it anymore. I interrupted her mid-sentence, my voice tight. "We need to talk about something important." She was caught off guard, her smile faltering. "What's wrong?" she asked, surprised. Taking a shaky breath, I began. I told her I'd noticed her behavior around Tom, the flirting, the casual touches, the lingering looks. I told her it was making me incredibly uncomfortable and that it needed to stop. I watched her face morph, first surprise, then confusion, then pure, blazing anger. She demanded to know what I was talking about, vehemently denying she'd been flirting. I wouldn't back down. "You have been, Sarah, whether you realize it or not. It's inappropriate, and it's causing me a lot of distress." She let out a laugh that was anything but genuine. "You're being ridiculous. Tom's practically family. I'm just being friendly." But her words only tightened the knot of tension between us. This wasn't going to be easy. This rift was only going to deepen. I pushed back harder. It's more than just friendliness. You're constantly finding excuses to be near him, to touch him, to laugh at his jokes, even when they're not funny. Her face flushed crimson with fury and disbelief. My accusations, so close to her wedding, clearly shocked her. She lashed out, questioning my confidence, suggesting I must be deeply insecure to accuse her of such a thing. Her words stung, but I stood my ground. This isn't about insecurity, it's about respect. You're crossing a line and it needs to stop. Suddenly, she shot up, her chair scraping loudly across the floor, signaling the end of our conversation. I'm not going to sit here and listen to your paranoid, ridiculous accusations. If you can't trust your own sister, that's your problem, not mine. With that, she stormed out, leaving me utterly alone with a whirlwind of emotions. I felt awful. Had I overreacted? Was I truly just paranoid? When I returned home, Tom immediately saw something was wrong. I recounted the conversation with Sarah, watching the concern deepen on his face. When I finished, he let out a heavy sigh. I think you made a big mistake, he said. He was worried Sarah would be deeply hurt, especially with the wedding so close. Are you taking her side? I demanded, feeling defensive. He quickly reassured me he wasn't, but then he expressed his doubts that Sarah had really been flirting. Even if she had, which he found unlikely, he believed confronting her directly was the wrong approach. His words left me more conflicted than ever, unsure if I'd done the right thing. Tears welled in my eyes. So what was I supposed to do, Tom? Just ignore it. My voice was raw with frustration and hurt. He wrapped his arms around me gently, suggesting I could have handled it differently, talked to him more, or approached Sarah less confrontationally. He worried that now Sarah was upset with both of us, and it would cast a shadow over her wedding. Overwhelmed, I pulled away. So this is all my fault? I needed to know if he truly blamed me. He sighed deeply, struggling for words. He didn't mean to place all the blame on me, he said, but he did think I might have overreacted, let my emotions get the better of me. We argued in circles, neither of us truly understanding the other's perspective. Eventually, he went to bed, leaving me alone with my swirling thoughts and doubts. By the way, if you're still with me, make sure to hit subscribe. More unbelievable stories are coming. The days that followed were thick with tension. Sarah had completely stopped speaking to me. My parents, noticing her distress, called me, demanding to know why she was so upset. I tried to explain, but their responses made it clear they believed I had overreacted too. As the wedding day loomed, I felt increasingly uncertain. I was supposed to be a bridesmaid, a role that now felt like a crushing burden. I wasn't even sure Sarah still wanted me. Tom, however, was still invited and urged us both to attend, to show there were no hard feelings. But the thought of standing there, watching my sister walk down the aisle, knowing how angry and hurt she was, made me feel physically ill. The whole situation was a tangled mess, and I had no idea how to untangle it without causing more pain. I tried calling Sarah multiple times, leaving voicemails, apologizing, saying we needed to talk. I even visited her flat, but she just closed the door on me. My anxiety mounted. Tom kept telling me to let it go, that everything would blow over. I even had a nightmare where I showed up at the wedding, and everyone stared, pointing and whispering. I woke up shaking, covered in a cold sweat. Then, 1 week before the wedding, I finally reached my breaking point with Tom's constant gaslighting. I decided to visit my parents again, determined to make them understand. As I approached the front door, I heard subdued voices coming from the side of the house. Intrigued, I walked into the garden and stopped dead. There, partly concealed behind a huge plant, were Sarah and Tom. They were locked in a passionate embrace, kissing fiercely. Her legs were wrapped around his waist, his hand beneath her top. They were so utterly absorbed in each other, they didn't even see me standing there. It felt like a physical blow to the stomach. All the air left my lungs. For a solid minute, I couldn't move, couldn't speak, as the horrifying reality slammed into me. A powerful wave of anger, betrayal, and pure gut-wrenching pain surged through my body. My emotions completely overwhelmed me. What the hell is this? I screamed, my voice trembling, thick with the intensity of what I was feeling. Their reaction was immediate. My sister and my boyfriend froze, shock on their faces, their guilty expressions betraying them completely. Sarah's face drained of color, turning ashen as she realized she'd been caught. Tom fumbled for words, stammering, "It's not what it looks like." But it was exactly what it looked like. Every fear, every suspicion that had been gnawing at me, confirmed in one devastating moment. Tears streamed down my face. How could you? I choked out. My own sister and my boyfriend. The pain in my voice was unmistakable. Sarah started to cry too, her voice quivering with regret. "I'm so sorry," she sobbed, struggling to explain. "We didn't mean for this to happen." But I couldn't stand to hear any of their pathetic excuses. The betrayal was too deep, too raw. Without another word, I spun around and fled, running back to my car. Their desperate calls for me to return fell on deaf ears. I just drove away, my mind spinning with disbelief and hurt. My phone began to ring incessantly. First Tom, then Sarah, then my mom. I couldn't bring myself to answer. The pain was too fresh, too overwhelming. When I finally arrived home, I felt numb. I packed a bag with clothes and essentials. I couldn't stay there. Not after this. I sent Tom a final text. We're done. Don't try to contact me again. Then I switched off my phone, cutting off all communication, and I left. I spent several days in a fog at a hotel, struggling to process what had happened. My phone was still buzzing with messages and missed calls, but I couldn't respond. I was too overwhelmed. But eventually, a clarity emerged. Mark, Sarah's fiancé, deserved to know. With a heavy heart, I called him. When Mark answered, I could hear the confusion in his voice. He said Sarah had been in a terrible state, that I disappeared and wasn't talking to anyone. Taking a deep breath, I explained everything. My initial suspicions, how everyone had brushed me off, and then in excruciating detail, the scene I'd witnessed in my parents' garden. Mark listened quietly, not interrupting, just a small sound now and then to let me know he was there. When I finished, there was a long, heavy silence. Then, in a controlled, measured voice, he simply thanked me. He said he needed time to process. And with that, he ended the call. I sat there, staring blankly at my phone, wondering what he would do. As the wedding day approached, I heard nothing more from him or my family. Sarah stopped trying to contact me, and I started to suspect she'd somehow convinced Mark to forgive her. The thought that she might actually escape the consequences, that she could have her fairy tale wedding while my life was in shambles, made me feel physically ill. There was no way I could attend. I spent that day alone, focusing on how to rebuild my life after such profound betrayal. Then, on the evening of the wedding, my phone rang. It was my cousin Emma. Her voice was hushed, urgent, and brimming with excitement. Oh my God, you won't believe what just happened. Confused and intrigued, I asked what she meant. Emma launched into her story. Everything had seemed normal, she said. Sarah looked stunning. Mark stood ready at the altar. But when it came time for the vows, Mark had stepped forward unexpectedly. He announced he had something to say. My heart began to pound. Mark, in front of everyone, declared he couldn't go through with the wedding. He told the guests he couldn't marry someone who had betrayed her own sister and devastated her life by getting involved with her boyfriend. Emma described how Sarah turned deathly pale. Then, to everyone's shock, Mark turned to my parents and apologized, telling them they needed to know the real reason why I had distanced myself from the family. Sarah started sobbing. My parents were startled and perplexed. Guests began whispering, trying to make sense of it all. Then Mark simply walked out of the church, leaving Sarah alone and weeping at the altar. It was like something out of a movie, Emma exclaimed, her voice still tinged with disbelief. Everyone's in shock. Your parents are trying to get the full story from Sarah, but she's an emotional wreck. As I sat there, absorbing every word, a mix of emotions washed over me. On one hand, there was a profound sense of vindication. The truth was out. But on the other, a deep sadness for the pain and turmoil this had brought upon my family. Emma, sensing my silence, gently asked, Are you okay? I'm not sure, I said truthfully. I never wanted it to end like this. After a little more conversation, I hung up and sat in silence, trying to process it all. The truth was clear, but at what cost? My bond with Sarah was shattered, my relationship with Tom destroyed, and now my whole family was in crisis. I realized that while the truth might set you free, it doesn't instantly fix everything. Healing and rebuilding trust would be a long road ahead. But for the first time since this nightmare began, I felt a flicker of relief. At least now, I could begin to move forward, unburdened by the weight of unspoken truths. I'm still taking things one day at a time, and I know I'll eventually have to face my family. But if nothing else, this entire ordeal has shown me the undeniable value of following my gut feeling, of defending myself, even when everyone around me questions my sanity. What would you have done in my place? Have you ever had to trust your gut feeling against everyone else's doubts? Tell me what you think in the comments below. I really want to know.